Imagine a life where your every step, thought, and aspiration is subtly guided by an unseen force, a law so deeply ingrained in your psyche that it dictates your actions without your conscious awareness. This law defines your fears, desires, and even your beliefs about yourself. Surprisingly, it wasn't proclaimed by any government, prescribed by religion, or imposed by authority. It exists within you, hidden in the darkest corners of your unconscious. Carl Jung dedicated his life to exploring these hidden forces that shape human behavior, and discovered a truth so unsettling that many instinctively refuse to acknowledge it. This truth, if understood and embraced, can lead to incredible personal freedom. However, if ignored, it can trap you in endless cycles of self-destruction, fear, and suffering. By the end of this narrative, you'll understand why this secret law is the key to unlocking your true potential. But be warned, this knowledge carries a serious challenge. Once you've seen the truth, you can never turn away from it. And the final revelation will be the most powerful of all, capable of forever changing your perception of yourself and the world around you. Carl Jung, a prominent explorer of the human psyche, held the belief that the mind has a multi-layered structure, where the conscious I, which represents our public persona, is merely the tip of the iceberg. In the boundless depths of the unconscious lies a far more complex and enigmatic entity, a hidden part of our personality that we have persistently avoided throughout our lives. Jung christened this concealed realm the shadow. According to Jung, the shadow consists of those aspects of our personality that we have rejected, suppressed, or ignored. It includes a wide range of emotions that were considered unacceptable, urges that evoke feelings of shame, and even strengths that were never fully realized. From the moment we are born, we begin to absorb the norms and rules of behavior accepted in society. Parents, educators, and the social environment shape our understanding of what we should be. We are encouraged for certain actions and punished, directly or indirectly, for others. Over time, we learn to mask certain aspects of our personality to earn approval, integrate into society, and feel safe. But what happens to those parts of ourselves that we turn away from? They don't disappear without a trace. Instead, they go into the depths of the unconscious, where they continue to influence our thoughts, behavior, and feelings, even when we're unaware of it. The more stubbornly a person disowns their shadow side, the more powerfully that shadow subjugates them. It manifests itself in the most unexpected ways, through agonizing self-doubt, inexplicable, irrational fears, self-destructive behavioral patterns, and sometimes even through inexplicable sympathy or antipathy towards certain people. Surely, everyone has noticed that the character traits that most irritate us in others are often a reflection of something carefully hidden within ourselves. When someone's excessive arrogance, painful egoism, or excessive ambition evokes deep rejection, perhaps it's not about those people at all, but about the fact that they seem to mirror the part of our own shadow essence that we refuse to acknowledge. The famous psychologist Carl Jung called this phenomenon projection. When an individual rejects something in themselves, they subconsciously project it onto others, blaming them for what they cannot cope with within themselves. And this leads to a fundamental but often ignored law of human existence. It's necessary to bravely face your shadow, otherwise it will unconditionally rule your life. Neglecting this law is tantamount to being in a state of lethargic sleep and self-deception, as if there is a full understanding of oneself, while the subconscious subtly directs all decisions and actions. Awakening, liberation from this invisible control, requires courage that few are capable of. It's necessary to look intently into the darkest corners of your soul and accept them as an integral part of your personality. Accepting one's shadow is a task that requires considerable courage because it involves confronting the unattractive sides of one's own personality. This means an honest look at yourself, recognizing in yourself not only those qualities that you want to demonstrate to others, but also those that cause fear and rejection. It's about acknowledging feelings such as envy, anger, selfishness, as well as awareness of weaknesses and suppressed desires that a person has diligently ignored for many years. However, paradoxically, it's in the shadow that not only negativity lies, but also enormous potential. The denied aspects of personality contain an inexhaustible source of energy necessary to unlock true potential. The deepest fears often point to hidden strengths, and suppressed emotions can be the key to personal transformation. Why do people repeat the same mistakes over and over again? Why do they enter into destructive relationships, become addicted to harmful habits, or choose work that doesn't bring satisfaction? The answer is simple. Their shadow controls them, subtly directing their actions. Until a person dares to face their shadow, they will remain under the control of forces whose nature they do not understand. However, what happens at the moment when the long-awaited encounter with one's own shadow occurs? When a person stops running from themselves and boldly turns to face those hidden aspects of their personality that they previously diligently avoided? It is from this turning point that genuine personal growth and self-improvement begin. Carl Jung, the eminent Swiss psychologist and psychiatrist, called this profound process individuation, a unique journey aimed at integrating all aspects of the human self without exception, both light and positive, and dark and negative, into a unified, harmonious, and authentic whole. In this regard, everyone should ask themselves several important questions. What specific parts of my personality am I diligently avoiding? What emotions cause me feelings of discomfort and rejection? What in other people evokes strong, sometimes inexplicable reactions and feelings in me? All of these are valuable clues and signals emanating from the depths of our unconscious, pointing to those aspects of our personality that require awareness and acceptance. In the next part of the narrative, we will examine in detail the consequences of ignoring one's own shadow and discuss specific steps that can be taken to integrate it, thereby unlocking the enormous potential and power hidden within each of us. But before we continue our investigation, it is worth pondering the following question. Do you really know who you are, or are you only familiar with the version of yourself that you allow the world to see? Reflect on the following. If your shadow contains those parts of your personality that you stubbornly reject, what happens when you continue to ignore it? What happens when those emotions, desires, and fears that you suppress remain buried deep inside, exerting a hidden but powerful influence on your thoughts and actions from the depths of your unconscious? The renowned psychoanalyst Carl Jung warned that the more actively a person suppresses their shadow side, the more powerful it becomes. Ignoring and denying the hidden aspects of one's self does not lead to their disappearance. On the contrary, they gradually take over consciousness, manifesting in the most unexpected forms. This is why many people find themselves trapped in repetitive life scenarios from which there seems to be no escape. Why do individuals sometimes destroy their own happiness? What makes them repeatedly enter into destructive relationships that cause suffering? And why does a person so often act against their own interests, as if obeying someone else's will? The answer to these questions lies in the shadow, that dark, unconscious part of the personality, which, contrary to popular belief, is a very real force that has a colossal impact on life. The shadow is not just an abstract philosophical concept, but a living, dynamic structure within the psyche, subtly shaping actions and decisions, often remaining unnoticed. Suppressed emotions sooner or later find a way out, manifesting in the most unexpected forms. Hidden anger can transform into passive aggression or inexplicable resentment, and rejected desires can result in impulsive, reckless behavior. Fears that a person refuses to face keep them in a vicious circle of avoidance, depriving them of the courage to take the justified risks necessary for personal growth and development. Think about the vicissitudes of your own destiny. Surely everyone has had to experience strong emotions in response to certain events or actions of people, and then wonder why it caused such a strong response. Who among us has not been in situations that they vowed never to repeat? Such moments indicate that the so-called shadow is actively manifesting in our psyche. When we ignore the need to integrate the shadow, it subtly influences our behavior, like a puppeteer pulling invisible strings. But what happens when we finally decide to face it? It is at this moment that the process of personality transformation begins. The renowned psychologist Carl Jung argued that genuine psychological growth, which he called individuation, becomes possible only when the shadow is integrated. It's important to understand that integration doesn't imply blindly indulging destructive impulses or uncontrollably expressing suppressed emotions. It's about acknowledging the existence of these hidden aspects of personality and bringing them into the realm of conscious awareness, so they no longer control us on an unconscious level. The process of integrating the shadow is by no means simple, but it's absolutely necessary for achieving psychological maturity. It requires honesty with oneself, the ability to self-analyze, and a willingness to see oneself in all fullness, not just in the idealized image presented to others. It is at this stage that most people prefer to retreat. The human mind resists such deep work on itself, as it's associated with discomfort. It's much easier to continue blaming external circumstances, to imagine oneself as a victim of fate, than to admit to being the creator of one's own life. Apparently, the viewer already subconsciously senses the truth. An inner force compels them to awaken and break free from the prison of the illusory world. However, a key question arises. Are they ready to take this decisive step? For a more detailed examination of this problem, it's necessary to break it down into specific stages. The first step towards integrating one's shadow is awareness. Start by carefully observing your reactions. Pay attention to the moments when you experience strong emotional outbursts, whether it's anger, fear, envy, or even admiration. These reactions serve as indicators pointing to what's hidden in the depths of your shadow. For example, if a person is overwhelmed with resentment at the sight of confident and successful people, it's worth asking, why is this happening? Perhaps these people are a living reminder of who they themselves dream of becoming. If they are annoyed by the arrogance of others, then it's probably because they were taught from childhood that self-confidence is something dangerous or unacceptable. If someone's vulnerability makes them uncomfortable, then most likely they were brought up believing that emotions are a sign of weakness. Once these hidden aspects have been identified, the next stage is acceptance. This doesn't mean immediately succumbing to every suppressed desire or impulse. It's about recognizing the fact that these parts of the personality exist. A person is not only the image they are trying to create, but also the one they avoid meeting within themselves. And this is absolutely normal. Carl Jung believed that the integrity of personality is achieved not by denying the shadow, but by accepting it. He wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." It's about allowing oneself to see one's own internal contradictions, openly admitting weaknesses, and accepting the fact that perfection is unattainable, but the integrity of nature is important. The moment a person stops fighting their shadow side marks the return of their true strength. By integrating their shadow, it loses control over them. Instead of unconscious actions, the individual begins to make conscious choices. Instead of transferring their hidden fears to others, they take responsibility for personal development. This is the difference between those who are in a state of spiritual slumber and those who awaken. The former continue to remain in the power of their unconscious fears, repeatedly making the same mistakes. The latter dare to break the tacit law, to appear before themselves in all fullness, without embellishment, and to find their true power. But here, an even deeper aspect opens up. What if we assert that the greatest virtues of a person are also hidden in their shadow? That it is precisely those aspects that they suppressed that are the key to their transformation? Next, we will unveil the colossal power prepared for those who decide to integrate their shadow side and justify why this revelation may be the most fateful knowledge in their lives. For those who have carefully followed the course of our reasoning, the truth is already beginning to become clear. Those aspects of personality that have been denied for years are not opponents at all, but are missing fragments of the integral self. But what happens when finally a reunion with these rejected parts occurs? What lies behind the veil of fear and resistance? Carl Jung, an outstanding thinker, argued that in the depths of the shadow lie not only repressed fears and weaknesses, but also colossal, unrealized potential. This is the paradox. What causes the greatest trepidation often contains the very strength needed for a radical transformation of life. The confidence that evokes admiration in others, but is uncomfortable to manifest in oneself, is part of the shadow side of the personality. Ambitions suppressed by upbringing in the spirit of modesty also find refuge in the shadows. Emotions that were deemed excessive, dreams abandoned due to seeming unreality, strength feared because of the instilled belief to be inconspicuous. All of this is locked away in the depths of the subconscious, awaiting its moment of demand. It is at this moment that the true magic of transformation is born. By integrating the shadow aspects of one's personality, a person not only gets rid of oppressive fear, but also discovers hitherto unknown horizons of personal power. The view of oneself becomes crystal clear. The agonizing split between the imposed image and the true essence disappears. Gaining integrity makes a person truly invincible. It should be emphasized that this path is by no means strewn with roses. It requires the deepest self-analysis, uncompromising honesty, and the courage to look into the darkest corners of one's soul, where most prefer not to look. The world, unfortunately, is in no hurry to support work with the shadow, for it is beneficial for it that people remain ignorant of their colossal power. One only needs to look around. Entire industries thrive by exploiting human weaknesses and insecurities. Social institutions are structured in such a way as to keep people in obedience, shackling them with fear of their own depth. The further a person is torn from their true self, the easier it is to manipulate them. That is why meeting one's shadow is a real rebellion, a daring act of awakening in a world that prefers to see its inhabitants asleep. But once you see the truth, there is no turning back. A person begins to clearly realize how they were taught to reject themselves, to fear their own instincts, to doubt their inner wisdom. Returning the lost parts of themselves, they find a new version of themselves, free from previous limitations and ready for great accomplishments. So, how does this exciting process of self-knowledge and personal growth begin? How is this deep inner work practically carried out? The first and perhaps most important step on this path is achieving radical self-awareness. This implies close attention to your inner experiences, emotional reactions, and established behavioral patterns. It is necessary to notice what situations or words cause you strong, often negative emotions, what makes you feel the need for protection, what awakens a sense of your own insignificance or unworthiness. It is in these dark corners of consciousness that the so-called shadow hides, a collection of unrecognized and suppressed aspects of personality. Instead of instinctively rejecting these unpleasant feelings, it is recommended to give them time and attention, to try to understand their origin and meaning. Ask yourself the question, what exactly is this emotion trying to teach me? What important information does it carry? The second, no less important stage is self-acceptance. It is here, as practice shows, that many people encounter serious difficulties. Realizing the presence of your shadow is only half the battle. It is much more difficult to accept it without condemnation and self-flagellation. It is important to realize and deeply feel that no one is absolutely good or absolutely bad. Each of us is a complex and multifaceted being in which there is a place for both light and dark sides. True strength and harmony, as psychologists claim, comes precisely from the integration of these opposites, from accepting oneself in all fullness, with all the advantages and disadvantages. The third step on the path to integrity is expression. After you have recognized and accepted these hidden, previously rejected parts of your personality, you need to find a constructive way to integrate them into your daily life. This does not mean that you need to blindly follow every impulse or become irresponsible and reckless. It is about allowing yourself to be fully present in the moment, to express your true truth without feeling shame and guilt, to live in accordance with who you really are, and not with the image that others or society have imposed on you. This is the path to authenticity, to living in harmony with yourself. Think about the image of a person who evokes sincere admiration, radiating freedom, confidence, and inner strength. What sets them apart from the general mass? The secret lies not in the absence of dark sides, but in their acceptance and integration into the overall picture of the personality. This person boldly met face to face with their weaknesses, recognized their strengths, and unlocked their potential to the fullest. And this path is open to everyone. The most amazing thing is that inner transformation entails changes in the external world. Relationships with others are transformed as the need to project one's own fears and complexes onto others disappears. New horizons and opportunities open up, as self-sabotage gives way to confident movement towards success. Inner energy shifts its vector, attracting people and circumstances into life that resonate with one's true self. This is why working with the shadow is key to gaining true freedom. It's not just about healing past wounds, but about unlocking the incredible potential of personal power, which only a few dare to access. But those who dare to take this step are capable of changing the world around them. In the concluding part of this exciting journey, the most secret mystery of the shadow will be revealed, capable of turning the perception of oneself and the surrounding reality upside down. If there is a willingness to take the last step towards the unknown, then it is time to move on. Finally, we are approaching the cornerstone, the truth that has the potential to transform a person's view of existence, of their own personality, and of the fundamental structure of reality. Carl Jung viewed the process of working with the shadow side not as an ordinary psychological practice, but as a spiritual rebirth. At the moment of acceptance and integration of the shadow, a deep truth is realized. The individual has never been merely a fragmented self, struggling to survive in a chaotic world, but has always been something much more, whole, powerful, and, in essence, divine. This is the greatest mystery of the shadow. It is not an enemy, but a key to transformation. It is those aspects of personality that cause the greatest fear, that possess the power of liberation. It is worth pondering. What if every life struggle, every painful experience, every recurring scenario is not a curse but a valuable lesson? What if suffering was originally intended not for destruction but for awakening? What if everything that a person tries to run away from is actually directing them back to themselves? Carl Jung had a deep understanding of the human psyche, arguing that the unconscious, or shadow, is not just a repository of repressed fears and negative emotions, but also a path to self-knowledge and spiritual growth. He defined this process as individuation, the striving to reveal the most complete and authentic version of oneself, which is a kind of spiritual awakening. Meeting one's own shadow, according to Jung, not only heals old wounds, but also returns a person to their true essence, to that part of their self that knows no fear and limitations, that was originally whole. Achieving this level of awareness leads to dramatic changes in life. A person ceases to be a passive observer, reacting to external circumstances, and becomes an active creator of their reality. They realize that they are not a victim of fate, but shape their own life. Jung once remarked, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." These words reflect the belief that most people live unconsciously, not understanding how their fears, doubts, and repressed desires affect their every step. They believe that they make independent decisions, but in reality, their actions are determined by hidden forces that they do not realize. By transforming the unconscious into a sphere of conscious perception, a person regains lost power over their own life. Actions are no longer dictated by crippling fear, but arise from a clear understanding of what is happening. From now on, there is no place for repeating painful scenarios, giving way to the creation of new, promising opportunities. The individual ceases to be a passive executor of someone else's will, becoming a full-fledged author of their own destiny. This is the highest truth of human existence. The purpose of a person is not to lead a miserable existence in the shadow of their own fears, but to accept them, to subjugate them to their will and turn them into an inexhaustible source of wisdom and strength. The question is, will there be enough courage to do what the vast majority do not dare to do? Will there be courage to look into the darkest depths of one's own soul and reclaim what rightfully belongs? Will a person be able to stop running from their own shadow and boldly look it in the face, realizing that behind it lies their true, higher self? For if there is enough determination to embark on this difficult journey, not only will a transformation of personality occur, but also a transformation of the entire surrounding world. This is a sacred law that awakened souls do not dare to violate. Those who neglect it are doomed to remain in the captivity of illusions, while those who accept it embark on the path of strength, purposefulness, and boundless freedom. The choice remains with everyone. Will there be enough spirit to take the first step? Thank you for your attention.